Tonight on CFTK-TV News, we have an update on a Fort St. John child abuse investigation. Metro Vancouver had quite the violent 48-hour period recently, and a notable building will get demolished to make way for more housing.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cal Maslin, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. A new candidate has tossed their hat in the ring to represent the NDP in the North Coast riding. Terry Forster-Carnegie is a nurse and city councilor in Prince Rupert. She is also currently the elected representative for nurses in the Northwest for the BC Nurses Union. In a Facebook update, Forster announced she is seeking the nomination for the BC NDP as a potential candidate for the North Coast Haida Gwaii riding. She wrote that she looks forward to connecting with people over the coming weeks and sharing more about how she would advocate for the North Coast. Jennifer Rice, our current NDP MLA for the North Coast, announced recently that she would not be seeking re-election. At their most recent council meeting last week, the Smithers Town Council voted in favor of enacting a policy that surprisingly had never been active in the council before. The policy in question is one for council maternity and paternity leave, and its purpose is to give out support to elected officials that are about to become parents. From this point onward, any elected official that has a child in any way, shape, or form can end up getting either maternity and/or parental leave benefits. Smithers is also now one of a few BC municipalities that has this kind of policy. The idea for implementing this new policy was brought up by Smithers councillor Genevieve Patterson, who is currently pregnant and expected to have her first child sometime in the next month or so. The province of BC is attempting to crack down on illegal wildfire hunting and fishing activities by doubling the already in place penalties. The new fines for violation tickets is now ranging from around $345 as a start point to $1,495 or so as a max fine. The Ministry of Forests stated that the new scale of the fines was officially effective at the start of this week. The BC Wildlife Federation also said in a separate news release that the new penalties are a bit more in line with the harm caused by the poachers. Turning again to the heartbreaking case of child neglect mentioned yesterday, 3 Indigenous children now living in Fort St. John endured a horrific home life before being taken from their parents. The details are once again disturbing, and here's CTV's Michelle Bernoro with her exclusive investigation.
They'll be laughing and playing, and then all of a sudden crying, screaming, hysterics. They self-harm.
This foster mom is talking about 3 children now in her care, after she says they were found living in filthy conditions, isolated from the outside world. Legally, we can't report the family's name or show their faces.
They were utterly 100% neglected and locked in their rooms. The children, when found, they were covered in feces, urine. They literally were feral. I'm not exaggerating. They were literally feral.
This story is beyond heartbreaking.
CTV News went to the minister for answers after relatives say repeated calls to social services and police were ignored for years. The children were only removed after their biological mother herself called the ministry last December, saying she could no longer cope.
When concerned family and community reach out to our ministry, it is absolutely essential that we are doing everything to make sure that those cases and calls and reports are screened. Kids need us to get this right.
Though she would not speak directly to the case, citing privacy, she insists her ministry has been taking action.
In January, we made some changes to practice so that in cases of multiple calls from concerned family, from community members, that we are taking another look.
But government failings in this case, says the foster mom, didn't end when the children were removed. She says at first they were put in a resource home where they did not get the follow-up care recommended by doctors. Since they've come to her, she's had to constantly fight to get the help they need.
It's just ridiculous. These children need lifelong therapies and care.
It is absolutely our responsibility as a ministry to ensure that care providers have what they need to make sure that kids are safe and are getting the care and love that they need.
The Ministry of Children and Family Development has been plagued by failures for years, And in too many cases, those failures have led to tragedy. In 2021, a boy from Chilliwack died at the hands of his foster parents. Ministry staff hadn't checked on him for 7 months. And in 2018, Dante Lucas died after transitioning back into his mother's care.
We have, over the last little while, increased staff throughout our ministry. Again, layering accountability and oversight. Where there are additional things that need to be done, additional actions that need to be taken, as minister, I'll be taking them.
As for these children, the foster mom says they are deeply traumatized.
They were failed in every way.
Failed, she believes, for life. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Vancouver.
Coming up next, a man in court for the death of his wife has given out an apology for his actions. Welcome back. A Langley man who pled guilty to manslaughter in the death of his wife, Naomi Onatera, said he is, quote, really sorry. The apology came in a statement that was read by his lawyer at his sentencing hearing. CTV's Ben Milger was in the courtroom and has details, and a warning, the details in this story are rather graphic.
Obnus Regis chose not to speak on his own behalf at his sentencing hearing for the manslaughter of his wife. Instead, one of his lawyers read a statement written by him. And as soon as she began to speak, the victim's sister stood abruptly and marched out of the courtroom. In late August 2021, Regis killed his wife, Naomi Onatera, by punching her during an argument. Onatera was considered a missing person for nearly 4 months before Regis confessed to undercover police. He said he dismembered his wife's body and disposed of her remains. Partway through his trial for manslaughter and indignity to human remains, he changed his plea to guilty. I am really sorry, and I apologize with the worst remorse and regret I can express for what I did that night. I never had the intention when we started arguing that it would lead to Naomi dying. There is no way that I can go back in time, but if I could, I would have walked away, his statement said. Court heard Regis left the couple's 18-month-old child in a playpen next to her mother as Onatera lay on the floor struggling to breathe. The child was also with him as he spread Onatera's remains on the bank of the Fraser River. His statement addressed the little girl directly. To my daughter, I have failed you as a father, but I hope the good care and education that your mom and I gave you in the beginning will help you in your life. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope my acceptance of responsibility can one day earn me a chance to be in your life. I love you. For the 2 charges, the Crown is seeking a total sentence of 19 years. The defense is asking for 10 to 11 years. In either case, Regis will be deported to his native Haiti upon release from prison. The judge has reserved her decision until July 16th. Ben Milger, CTV News, New Westminster.
Not long ago saw a violent 48-hour period in Metro Vancouver. One man was stabbed to death in Burnaby on Monday, and on Sunday, police descended on a North Surrey neighborhood home where a woman was critically injured and she later died. Now, friends and family are mourning a Surrey landscaper, saying that she died in a home invasion attack. CTV's Ben Nesbitt has the story.
Nearly 2 days after they arrived on scene, investigators remain here Tuesday afternoon. Now a family has gone public, posting on social media that they're heartbroken that a loved one has been killed. Saying in a statement in part on June 16, 2024, Tori Dunn was victim to a home invasion that resulted in her death. We, her family, cannot begin to understand how someone as kind as Tori could be victim to such senseless violence. Tori was loved by all that she met. RCMP were called to a home near Parsons Drive around 10 o'clock Sunday night for a report of a woman with life-threatening injuries. Mounties say she was taken to hospital, where she died. Investigators say they arrested a suspect near the area, but have yet to announce any charges. According to Dunn's Facebook profile, she was the owner of a landscaping company. CTV News has reached out to iHit several times seeking an update, but have yet to hear back. Ben Nesbitt, CTV News, Surrey.
Turning to tonight's weather, the north coast will more than likely see partly cloudy conditions at a low at 8 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area should get a chance of showers, plus a low of 13 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is also likely to get a chance of showers, but with a low of 9 degrees instead. On the north coast, the week for them should almost exclusively be composed of clouds and rain, while the high moves from 16 to 13 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, their upcoming week will consist of mainly rain and clouds as well, while the high shifts from 24 to 17 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, their next week or so will have some sun, but still a fair bit of rain and clouds, plus the high bounces between 26 and 17 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is utility work, bridge maintenance, road construction work, mowing, and several special events. Highway 37 has some paving operations, bridge maintenance, roadside brushing, and frost heaves. The Nishka Highway has some bridge maintenance, and the Telegraph Creek Road has frost heaves. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come is more word on the controversy of a certain St. Paul's hospital policy. Welcome back. There's fallout in the lawsuit against BC over medically assisted dying. Word has come from a Vancouver man whose partner was transferred out of St. Paul's Hospital to undergo MAID. He applauded the legal challenge, and there was a response from the Premier on this for the first time. CTV's Shannon Patterson reports.
A year and a half before, a terminally ill Sam O'Neill had to endure a forced transfer out of St. Paul's Hospital in the final hours of her life in order to undergo medical assistance in dying.
My partner, Christina Bates, she experienced the same thing on November 7th in 2021. We had a messed up forced transfer, and it was really hard on her and her family members.
Harrison applauds the civil lawsuit against the provincial government filed by O'Neill's mother on Monday that argues the MAID exemption granted to public facilities run by religious organizations like Providence Healthcare, which oversees St. Paul's, is contrary to the Canadian Charter.
I think the lawsuit is about time. I think that religion has no place in the delivery of public services in Canada, and certainly around healthcare.
This family's choice to go to court, I respect 100%, to get clarity from the court about rights and obligations of the healthcare system to them and to all British Columbians.
In his first comments about the lawsuit, the Premier said he has compassion for people who seek medical assistance in dying.
People who have access to MAID, who have made that decision to end their lives in this way, have our government's full support around the care that they deserve to ensure that their wishes are carried out in a way that is respectful.
But Harrison argues forcing patients to leave their palliative care beds at St. Paul's in order to access MAID is not respectful.
I think it's shameful.
And he doesn't understand why the province is willing to defend the practice in court.
I don't know why the Premier would do this. It's a waste of money. He should just instruct them to change their policy like that.
That's what happened in Quebec. Last year, the provincial government there passed a law forbidding any publicly funded healthcare facility from refusing to allow MAID on site, regardless of religious affiliation. Harrison says the BC government could avoid a protracted legal battle by doing the same thing here.
Stroke of the pen, this changes. You just give notice to the institutions that it's changing, and it's over. I don't understand. I think Quebec is leading the way and the rest of the country will follow suit in due time.
But in BC, it appears that won't happen unless the O'Neills win their civil lawsuit and a judge forces the government's hand.
I applaud the O'Neills for giving voice to the story and taking it to the mat.
He says that's what his late partner Christina would have wanted. Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
A very familiar building will face a wrecking ball as the province continues to eye public assets for housing. The ICBC building at Lonsdale Quay is the latest structure to face a new future as the Premier doubles down on his promise for housing around transit. But as Craig Krause reports, it's on a very long timeline.
Once a bustling headquarters of ICBC, the 300,000 square foot building is sitting mostly empty due to a hybrid work model, giving the province an idea for the waterfront property.
The government of BC will be purchasing the ICBC headquarters site, and we'll be using it to build hundreds of homes.
Coming with a price tag of $53.5 million, all part of the government's 10-year plan to spend $394 million to deliver 10,000 homes near transit.
It's important that the government of BC had an opportunity-driven fund to acquire real estate that is so important to shift people towards public transit and also develop the affordable housing that this region desperately needs.
At a time when rent and home prices are sky high in Vancouver and across the region, both Minister Rob Fleming and the Premier assured that the goal is to keep the transit-oriented housing attainable across the income spectrum.
One of the things that often happens with these government sites or sites that are close to the water is they get developed into luxury executive condos that don't fit the needs of the people who actually use transit. This building and this site gets used to build a more livable community for everybody.
Similar projects have been announced in Port Moody and Saanich so far, with 52 areas identified from the island to the Okanagan that local governments are now tasked with designating before June 30th.
So many people who want to live near transit can't, and this fixes that for hundreds of families.
As for the Lonsdale Quay site, well, excitement is growing. And EB says demolition won't begin until
ICBC moves their last employees over to VCC Clark so that we can get started right away.
An estimated timeline is between December 2026 and May 2027. Craig Krause, CTV News, North Vancouver.
Another recent announcement is just one of several that the BC NDP has been holding at a feverish pace. While the Premier said that he's addressing a long list of key issues, skeptics have called them dressed-up campaign stops. CTV's Rob Buffum reports.
Podiums and the Premier are popping up on a nearly daily basis, the government holding a flurry of spending announcements, like today's regarding a new kidney care unit in Surrey.
The government has a much bigger incumbency advantage in that they can make big splashy announcements with government money.
Premier Eby bristled at the suggestion that yesterday's announcement about the purchase of ICBC land for housing, or today's presser, were essentially campaign events sponsored by taxpayers.
I will not say to the people of Surrey that we could start construction on the renal centre in August, but we're actually going to push it to November so that we can announce it after the election.
Then there's the ads. This one, attacking Conservative leader John Rustad and BC United's Kevin Falcon, is entirely a campaign commercial. But who's behind it is so far completely anonymous.
What these third parties are hoping for, they'll prime the electorate, condition the electorate, soften them up for the party advertising that will come later from all sides.
Such third-party ads are allowed with no spending limits or those behind them being identified until the pre-campaign period officially begins July 23rd. Then the folks attached to them need to reveal who they are. Asked if those rules are fair, Eby said this.
Following the next election, if we're so fortunate as to form government again, there will be a report from the Chief Electoral Officer about how the election went, issues that have been identified for reform. It's possible that third-party election spending could be one of those issues.
What's certain, the government will likely hold many more pressers announcing or re-announcing plans in crucial ridings like in Surrey in the lead-up to this fall's election. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is up 7/100th of a cent. The price of gold is down $6. Oil is up 42 cents. Natural gas is down 4 cents. Aluminum is down $15. In Toronto, the TSX is down 94.40 points. The Venture Index is down 3.75. And in New York, both the Dow Jones and Nasdaq are still the same due to the U.S. holiday. Still ahead, Justin Timberlake recently generated some publicity that no one ever wants to get. Welcome back. Pop singer Justin Timberlake was arrested on a drunk driving charge overnight on Long Island, New York. The arrest coming in the middle of a tour, including stops in Canada, and not the kind of headlines the Grammy-winning musician wanted to make. CTV's Joy Malbon has the latest.
According to police, Timberlake was pulled over after he drove through a stop sign and failed to stay in his lane just after midnight in Sag Harbor. That's a summer playground in the Hamptons just east of New York. Now, court documents say that Timberlake told police he had one martini and was following his friends home, but the officer says Timberlake was clearly intoxicated. Describing the singer's eyes as bloodshot and glassy, he had slowed speech, unsteady on his feet, and a strong odor of an alcoholic beverage was emanating from his breath. One of the best-selling music artists in the world, the former Mouseketeer, has cultivated a squeaky clean image. From the Trolls movie,
Please don't eat me,
to Shrek and The Social Network, and a frequent guest on Saturday Night Live. Appearing on Oprah's Masterclass, Timberlake admitted that he has struggled with alcohol as a way to cope with the pressure of fame and success. The drunk driving charge more unflattering headlines after his ex, Britney Spears, wrote how Timberlake pressured her to abort a pregnancy while they were dating.
His last album that did just come out that he is on tour supporting right now didn't perform as well as his albums have in the past. So a lot of people are jumping off the Justin Timberlake train, and this might be another reason as to why as well.
Now married to actor-producer Jessica Biel, they have 2 sons. Timberlake wrote a touching tribute to them on Father's Day, calling his boys his 2 greatest gifts. Timberlake will be back in court in late July. He'll likely face a fine. All of it, though, embarrassing publicity for the pop singer, now released on bail. Joy Malbon, CTV News, Washington.
The assistant chief for Nanaimo Fire Rescue stated that a cigarette sparked a blaze that displaced over 50 people from a supportive housing complex earlier in the week. Troy Libis said a resident of the 51-unit building admitted to police that a mattress caught on fire while they were smoking in their room. Libis also said that no one was hurt and the sprinkler system helped suppress the flames. Corey Corfield with the Island Crisis Care Society next said that some residents have been allowed to return home to units that weren't damaged, and they found temporary housing for most of those who are still displaced. A BC government agency has ordered a liquefied natural gas company to deploy a cruise ship that was renovated to accommodate workers living near Squamish. Woodfibre LNG said that it got a compliance order from the BC Environmental Assessment Office requiring them to move the vessel to its designated area in Howe Sound from its current mooring off the coast of Nanaimo. The ship arrived in BC in January after a 40-day journey from Estonia, where it had been converted to shelter Ukrainian refugees. A statement from Woodfibre LNG says the ship is a modern vessel equipped with an 8,000 square foot fitness facility. That is all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.